Whenever I plan a shoot, I always start with the question, why? What is this photo about? Why am I shooting it? What is the theme? Because from there, I can start to figure out what poses are appropriate and what lighting is appropriate and what hair and makeup is appropriate. So the theme or the concept for this shot was just kind of like an old vintage feel and vintage glamour, vintage almost regality to her. So we actually started with this beautiful headpiece made by a designer friend of mine, Lori's son. And then the dress was a $12 lace dress that I got on Amazon. But the detail of the headpiece also matches the fine detail of the dress. So it works out perfectly. And then Griselle did makeup to match. So then the question for myself is, what type of lighting works for this scene? And so when I think of old Hollywood, old vintage glamour, it's usually hard light. It's not usually soft. It's that hard studio lighting with crisp shadows and blown out highlights. And those blown out highlights that we're told are bad, we're usually told not to have pure white. Well, guess what? Those blown out highlights gave the skin that perfect, even consistency. So what I need is a modifier that'll give me hard light, and then I'm going to be shooting tethered so that I can convert it to black and white, and so that I can increase the contrast and blow out those highlights and get it a little bit closer to that vintage feel. So I'm going to try out this setup, and you're gonna follow along with me as I test this out. But I'm going to use the most basic of modifiers. I'm gonna use a single strobe, and I am using a zoom reflector, or a basic silver reflector, which normally for portraits of the average person, I don't use because it's really hard light. But guess what? I need hard light. And usually with hard light, I'm worried because all the texture in the skin, but guess what? I'm blowing out the highlights and the texture in the skin, so it won't even be there. So I'm gonna start with it centered and low. I'm gonna give it a test. We'll see about that exposure, and then we'll try different positions and kind of see what gives me the look and feel I'm going for. So let me test exposure first. I'm just gonna give it a go here. Let me just give it a quick test. It looks straight on to me. So I definitely want to encourage you though to keep in mind that makeup is fantastic as well, because her skin looks dewy. This doesn't look like hard, brutal light on her skin because of the makeup as well. I could add a little bit more definition to her cheekbones. The face is a little flatter and rounder, not because of her face, but because I have the light so low. So I'm gonna raise it up. The higher up I raise the light, the more definition and sculpting it gives to the face. So let me step this up just a little bit. And I wanna make sure, maybe cut the difference right here. And I wanna still make sure it's pointed at the center of her face roughly. And I can actually see as I watch this, if I'm off, if I'm pointed down, like right now, the light is actually on her chest, and then I'm gonna have a hot spot on the chest instead of her face. So I have to be aware of that. Right there, look good? All right, good. So now, I will take a meter reading, but honestly, for this particular setup, I'm gonna blow out the highlights anyway. So probably I'm going to overexpose it from what this says. And I'm aiming to shoot, the camera settings I have are 1/200th of a second, f11, ISO 200. I'm aiming to be around there. So that's where I'm gonna have 1/200th of a second, ISO 200. Let me just give it a test. I'm guessing I have to, oh, that's right at f11. So that's right at f11. And it looks correctly exposed in camera, but I think I'm gonna blow out the highlights anyway. So let me take another shot, and then I'm gonna do my black and white conversion because I wanna see the look and feel. This old Hollywood's not gonna be in color. So take one more of these and let's see how all right. So that's giving a little bit more shape to her cheeks. Good. All right, so I like it. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and do my black and white conversion. Let me wait till this comes in. Okay, so let me see. I'm gonna do black and white. I'm gonna blow out my highlights by popping up the whites. Good. And brighten up a little bit. So that's giving me that beautiful old Hollywood light. So I like it. I actually really like the tone of the gray of the background. This is a fashion gray seamless paper. And in this instance, because I'm using a zoom reflector, she's bright and the light falls off. So the background's a little bit darker. So it looks nice and rich. So let me take a couple shots like this with the light kind of flat to her. So you turn that way, perfect. And chin this way just a little. And close your eyes. And lips together for one, and then eyes up at me. Good. All right, so let me take a look at these. Beautiful. So what I like about this, or what I would go for in a mood, is she's got a lot of like wistfulness, a lot of melodrama, which I want kind of for that old Hollywood look. I do want to mention, if I photographed this on a young, maybe on a teenager, maybe it wouldn't work, right? It's all about the mood and the feel, so it all has to kind of fit together. I like it, but I think I just want to lower the light a little bit. When she brings her chin down, she loses a little bit of the catch light. So I'm gonna bring it down just a tiny bit to give her a little bit more flexibility in where she moves her head. And right now I have the highlights really blown out, but I know that because I'm tethering and I'm shooting raw, I can always bring them back. All right, so I'm just lower it just a tiny bit. And then I think I want a little bit more shape to the light, so I'm gonna move it off to the side just to give me, maybe when she's facing straight on, give me a little bit of loop. Make sure that center light, good. Okay, so let me try a couple here and then we'll switch it up. All right, good. So I'm gonna shoot in here, okay, nice and close. Let me see how it's looking. Good. And I'm gonna have you lower your hands just a little bit and turn to your side just a tiny bit and lean forward. I want like crazy long neck. Perfect. And then come back to me just right there. Beautiful. Now be really sad. And put your hand up here. Good. All right, so let me take a look at these. Oh, beautiful. A background, I love that color of that gray, that richness. Great. Good. Beautiful. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a few more with eyes closed, and then I think I need to lower my light even more. Just when I turn her away, I'm losing my catch lights on some of them. So I'll do a couple more like that. And I'm just gonna lower this down just a little. Okay. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna bring my light down a tiny bit more. I still want some cheekbones, but let's try there. Okay, so I'm gonna have you pop this elbow out so there's a little bit of space, like just a little bit. Then kind of stick your neck out real long. I wanna see long neck. Let's see. And tilt your head the other way for one. Good. And rotate back towards me so I look and I lose all light on this side of her face. The background still has some light, so there'll be separation, but I don't want it to be gone. So yeah, rotate back to me just a little and chin down again. Beautiful. Perfect. Now stick your head, chin way out here, real long. And chin down, watching. I want a little light there, perfect. But I want your body to come back towards me, just right there, good. And chin way out till it hurts. Good, and then chin down. And come back towards me. Good, and come back towards me even more with your shoulders. Good. So now, because I'm shooting tethered, I make sure I'm hitting my focus okay. I should have moved my focus point for a couple of those, so let's just see. And you will see, because I'm shooting a lot and with big files, it kind of lags behind me a little bit, which this is just kind of how it works, right? So let's see. So I'm looking at my focus and I'm close, but I think I could be better. And also these files, if you're looking at this now, they take a second to render, so they'll look soft until they pop into focus. So if you try this, don't be like, oh my gosh, all my photos are soft. It's just because the picture's rendering the full file for you to look at. All right. Okay. What I usually do to keep the flow is I will shoot my subject, shoot a bunch till I'm happy, and then I take a pause so she can relax, and then I'll take a look at the shots. All right, so my focus looks decent, but I think I could be a little bit more precise. Thankfully, I'm shooting at f11, so even if I'm a little bit off, and I'm looking here at the eye, I mean, that's pretty darn sharp, so just want to be aware of it. I'll shoot a couple more like this, and then I'm looking at my background, and let's say that I wanted my background to be lighter. Well, how can I make it lighter? One of the things I could do is I could move her and the light both towards the background. But I could also just move her towards the background. So the whole inverse square law thing, more light is going to reach the background because she's at a similar distance to the background, so she will be similarly lit to the background. So I could try a couple lighter background shots in a few. So let me just try a few more of these. They look great. All right, so give me old Hollywood. All right. And soft fingers up top though. Beautiful. Beautiful, right there's great. And now look your head that way. Yeah, look your head this way when you do it. Perfect. See right there. And chin back towards me just a little. Perfect. I, by the way, wanted to mention that currently I am cropping a little bit wider because I'm shooting with my 24-105. But I think I want to get a couple tight headshots. So I'm going to switch from a 24-105 over to a 70-200. And just get a couple tighter shots in real close. So these ones are just gonna be your head, okay? And I'm gonna have you turn 3/4 this way. Lean your chest out, bring your, and so she knows what she's doing. When she leaned forward, it put her head out of the light. You'd have to pay attention to that because the zoom reflector has kind of a sweet spot centered. So if she moves out of it, the hot spot's gonna be on her shoulder, for example. So she kind of moved back into it, but I can move it and watch it. Okay, good. All right, great, and chin down. And I'm moving my focus point, so it's on her eye. And look back at me, good, chin back towards me a little. Good, and chin down a little. Beautiful. And now give me the, like a surprised look or a wistful. Good. Okay, so I'm going to try a couple more with a little bit lighter on the background. When I look at the file on my camera, the skin is overexposed and there is a lot of texture to the skin, but I know I'm shooting that black and white, so the skin's getting nice and blown out. So I got my nice tight head shots. I got my 3/4 length shots. I'm going to just pull this all back a little bit. And can you take two scoots back? Great. Now I'm going to pull this back. So I should get a little bit more light hitting the background as well. One of the things that you will notice is I'm using a hard light on her, and hard lights cast shadows. So if I shoot a full length shot, there's definitely going to be a shadow behind her. And so to get rid of this, I've got to do a few things. I could move my light off to the side and kick the shadow off to the side. You definitely check out the video on how to reduce shadows on the background. But in this case, I don't really care because I'm not shooting full length. So that shadow is not going to be such a distraction. So let's just see. I know my exposure will have changed because I moved her. I can meet her, or I can shoot it to feel, because again, I'm overexposing it anyway. So let me just take a quick test. Let's see. So taking a look at this, the shadow that I mentioned that would be cast by a hard light source, guess what? I see it on the background and I don't love it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move my light a little bit off to the side to kick it out of my frame. And then also, because I wasn't noticing this as I shot her, but as I'm tethering, I'm noticing the detail. Can you pull the shoulders back off? I feel like it's closing her in, and I want a little bit more of the long lines of her clavicles and her shoulders there. So let me see if this improved my shot. And I'm gonna break a rule and get it a low angle for a hero angle, make her look really tall. Turn to your right just a little. Good, real tall. Well, that's good, try that. Hide your right arm again and just push this one. Yeah, or sorry, yeah, hide that right arm. Perfect. And lower that hand just a little. Perfect. Good. Let's see how it's looking for my background and stuff. Perfect, so that little tweak that I moved the light off to the side, now I don't have that distracting background, and the light is super blown out on her face. It is definitely a broken rule when I do the conversion, but it looks good. So I like this. I'm gonna shoot it, and then I'm gonna wrap the shoot because I like what I'm getting here. So let me shoot a few more frames. Let's do here. Good, and give me a hand somewhere around here. Beautiful. Give me a hand a little taller. Yeah, like somewhere around here. And then head that way for a couple. Beautiful, stay right there. Perfect, I love the expression. then chin back this way, just right there, beautiful. Perfect. And so that when I'm moving her head there, I'm watching as I move her chin, I got some nice Rembrandt light. And then I move it to the side and I get split light. And I move it back to the main light and I get paramount light. So I'm gonna do that just so I give myself that variety. So first of all, turn your head just a little bit. Good, so that gives me split light. So look your eyes straight out here. Great, that gives me split. And then bring your chin back towards me, down, and a little bit to your right. Right, a little more. Right there is giving me Rembrandt. And move your head up. And that gives me loop. And now up to the light. And that'll give me paramount. So each one has a different feel. Great, and so give me a couple more full body shots. Okay, give me one more cross. Do I can give you an apple box? Where one? How high do you want it? Do you want one like lower? I can go higher than that too. And I got a higher one if you want this one. You can decide. Okay. Or tilt it, whatever you need. Cool. Great, perfect. Great, and lean out onto it. Beautiful. Pull your shoulder back just a little bit because she's blocking the light off of her shoulder. So she opens up her shoulders and I can see them a little more. Oh, gorgeous. And softer on that bottom hand, just a little bit. Good. And chin up, good. Perfect. All right, last few frames, open the shoulder just a little, right there, perfect. Good, and give me this kind of hand. And then chin down. Good, perfect. And then chin at me. I love that, great. Well, that is a perfect frame to end on. So to summarize this, I start with what I'm trying to say, like what I want to achieve with this shot. So I decided it's old Hollywood, so I had old Hollywood styling with the headpiece, which is actually just some lace with beads on it, wrapped around and styled around her head. And then we had kind of a vintage wig, and Griselle did that beautiful vintage makeup. So all the shots here, it's not meant to be soft, and it's not meant to be dreamy. It's meant to be emotive or strong or dramatic. And so the light also fits that. And so the light that I need for that has to be hard light, so it's going to be that zoom reflector. And I ended up with it being at kind of a long loop position. The long loop position you can see as she faces me straight on, that shadow from her nose, and it's super crisp because zoom reflectors are super hard light. I lowered it in the end because as I had her look down at me, she was losing her catch lights. So I lowered the light a little bit, but not super low because I still wanted some definition in the cheeks. And then I moved her a little closer to the background and the light a little further away so I could get a little extra spill in the background, because if it goes solid black, then I lose that nice separation that I see on the shadow side of the face and the side of her body. So I love these last few shots. This is definitely that vintage feel we were going for.